I used to watch them from across the room. You know the type. The ones who glide through social spaces like they own gravity itself. Walking up to complete strangers with zero hesitation. Starting conversations like breathing. And I'd stand there, frozen, convinced they were born with something I wasn't. Some secret superpower coded into their DNA that skipped me entirely. That voice in my head. It was relentless. Not now. You'll mess it up. They're busy. You'll sound stupid. Wait for a better moment. Wait until you're ready. Wait until the conditions are perfect. Meanwhile, someone else would walk right up to the person I'd been watching for 20 minutes. Just like that. No overthinking. No hesitation. No script. And I'd feel it. That sick, hollow ache of missed opportunity spreading through my chest. So I labeled myself. I'm just not that type of person. I'm the observer. The thinker. The one who needs more time. I told myself it was about temperament. About being introverted. About respecting boundaries. I built an entire identity around not being the person who makes the first move. Turns out, that single thought cost me years of my life. Years of connections I never made. Conversations I never had. Relationships that never started because I was too busy telling myself stories about who I was and wasn't. Because here's what the science actually shows. Confidence isn't genetic. It's not hardwired into some people's nervous systems while others get left out. It's mechanical. It's a series of actions that produce predictable results. And talking to people you're attracted to isn't a personality trait you're born with or without. It's a formula. With steps. That work on human psychology the same way every single time. The people who look fearless. They're not. They just learned the pattern before you did. They figured out the micro moves that make approaching someone feel natural instead of terrifying. They discovered the psychological shortcuts that turn strangers into conversations. And here's the part that changed everything for me. None of it requires you to become a different person. You don't need to transform into some extroverted social butterfly. You don't need to fake confidence you don't feel. You don't need to memorize pickup lines or develop a new personality. You just need the blueprint. The actual research-backed steps that make human beings receptive to connection. Because your brain and their brain work the same way. They respond to the same social cues. The same patterns of interaction. The same signals of safety and interest. Once you understand what those signals are and how to send them, everything shifts. The fear doesn't vanish completely. But it stops being the thing that decides for you. And that difference? That's where your life actually begins. Here's what changed everything for me. I learned that failed approaches almost never fail because of bad opening lines. They fail before you even open your mouth. Think about it. Someone you've never acknowledged suddenly appears in your personal space asking you a question. Your brain doesn't have time to categorize the interaction. It just feels jarring. Invasive, even when the person is being perfectly polite. Because the human brain hates sudden social shifts. Going from stranger across the room to person talking directly to me in one instant. It triggers a defensive response. Not conscious. Not rational. Just automatic. Your nervous system treating the interaction like a minor threat that needs assessment. And that assessment happens in milliseconds, long before logic kicks in. Social psychologists call it priming. And the fix is brilliantly simple. You warm the interaction before it officially starts. You create a micro-connection that gives their brain time to adjust. Time to decide you're safe. Time to become receptive instead of defensive. Most people skip this step entirely. They psych themselves up, walk straight over, and wonder why the energy feels off from the first second. Here's what actually works. Make eye contact 3 seconds longer than normal. Not a stare. Not aggressive. Just long enough that they notice. Let them see you smile. A real one. Not rehearsed. Not performative. Just genuine warmth that registers on your face naturally. Maybe raise your glass slightly in acknowledgement if you're at a bar. Or nod once if you pass them in a hallway. Something minimal. Something their subconscious registers without their conscious mind needing to analyze it. What you're doing is sending a signal. I see you. You see me. We've acknowledged each other's existence. This isn't random. This isn't accidental. This is intentional. And human brains are wired to respond to intentionality with curiosity instead of suspicion. By the time you walk over and say hello, their brain has already categorized you. Not as threat. Not as complete stranger. As someone familiar. Someone safe. Someone they've already connected with, even if just for a glance. That invisible 15-second warm-up turns cold approaches into warm conversations. And warm conversations are the only ones that actually go anywhere. I started testing this everywhere. Coffee shops. Networking events. Parties where I didn't know anyone. The difference was immediate and unmistakable. People leaned in instead of leaning back. They smiled before I finished my first sentence. They seemed genuinely pleased I came over instead of tolerantly polite. Because I wasn't interrupting their world anymore. I was entering it with permission. Permission I earned with nothing more than eye contact and a smile. No words. No performance. Just human connection at its most basic level. And that foundation. It changes everything about what you can build next. I had this whole routine worked out. The relaxed posture. The casual tone. The slight smirk that said I do this all the time. All of it designed to hide one simple truth. I was terrified. My heart was pounding. My palms were sweating. My mind was running through 17 different ways this could go wrong. But on the outside, total control. Total composure. Zero cracks in the armor. And you know what? People could tell anyway. Not because I was shaking or sweating or stumbling over words. But because fake confidence has a texture to it. A subtle wrongness that people feel even if they can't name it. It's in the eyes. The timing. The slight stiffness in how you hold your shoulders. Your body language screaming one thing while your energy says something completely different. Here's the real problem with pretending to be calm. It consumes massive amounts of mental bandwidth. You're running 2 programs simultaneously. The conversation you're trying to have and the performance you're trying to maintain. And the performance always wins. Which means you're not actually present. You're not listening. You're not connecting. You're just managing impressions while the actual human in front of you becomes background noise. Then I read about this concept from Harvard called anxiety reappraisal. The idea that naming your nervousness out loud actually neutralizes its power. That vulnerability isn't weakness. It's a reset button for social tension. So I tried something that felt completely backwards. I stopped hiding what I felt. I said it out loud. Right at the beginning. Hey, I'm definitely overthinking this, but I had to come say hi. Or, okay, full transparency, I've been trying to work up the nerve to talk to you for like 10 minutes. The first time I did it, I braced for disaster. For them to feel awkward. For the interaction to collapse under the weight of my admission. And the complete opposite happened. The air changed. Immediately. Because now I wasn't some guy running a script. I wasn't performing smooth or playing cool or trying to impress them. I was a human being brave enough to be honest. And that honesty reframes the entire interaction. It signals something rare. Something most people never experience in small talk. Authenticity. Real stakes. Genuine risk. People respond to it like oxygen. Because everyone is so starved for real interactions that when someone offers one, even a stranger, it feels like relief. Like finally someone dropped the game and said what they actually meant. And that confession, it makes them feel chosen. Not targeted. Not hit on. Not another number in someone's rotation. Chosen. Like you saw something in them worth the discomfort. Worth the vulnerability. Worth putting yourself out there. And being chosen. That's the entire foundation of attraction. Everything else is just decoration. I used to think attraction was about being the most interesting person in the room. So I'd load up on stories before going out. Perfect anecdotes. Impressive details about my life. Funny observations I'd rehearsed in my head 3 times. I'd approach someone and immediately start deploying this carefully curated highlight reel of my personality. Look at all these fascinating things about me. Look at how interesting my life is. Look at how worthy I am of your attention. And I'd watch people's eyes glaze over mid-sentence. Their smile would stay polite but their energy would shift. They'd nod along but I could feel them retreating even while standing right in front of me. Because here's the thing. When you're trying to impress someone, they feel it immediately. It creates this subtle pressure in the conversation. This unspoken transaction where you need something from them. Their validation. Their approval. Their confirmation that you're as interesting as you're trying to prove you are. And need? Need is repulsive. It doesn't matter how cool your stories are. If the energy underneath them is desperate for approval, people pick up on that frequency before you finish your second sentence. They can't always articulate why the conversation feels off. But they know something's wrong. Something feels like work instead of play. But curiosity. Curiosity is intoxicating. Studies prove it repeatedly. People who ask genuine questions, who listen like the answers actually matter, are consistently rated as more attractive than people who talk about themselves. Not interview questions. Not rapid-fire interrogation. Just real interest in who this person actually is. What makes them tick. What they care about. What their story is. What brought you here tonight hits different than let me tell you about my weekend. One pulls them toward you. The other pushes them away with the weight of performance. When I stopped trying to be impressive and started trying to be interested, people leaned in. Physically leaned in. Their body language opened up. Their answers got longer. More detailed. More personal. Because I wasn't taking up all the oxygen in the conversation trying to prove my worth. I was giving them space to exist. To be seen. To matter. And everyone is starving for someone who actually wants to know them. Not network with them. Not collect them. Not hook up with them. Just know them. Be genuinely curious about what's happening inside their head. Most people go weeks without anyone asking them a real question. Without anyone caring about the answer beyond surface-level politeness. So when you show up with authentic curiosity, you're not competing with other interesting people. You're operating in a completely different category. You become the person who made them feel fascinating. And people don't forget that person. They don't lose interest in that person. They lean toward that person like a plant towards sunlight. Because you're offering something rare. Attention without agenda. Interest without transaction. Connection without performance. There's this tiny detail that most people miss completely. Something so simple it sounds like a cliché when you first hear it. But neuroscience backs it up with hard data. When someone hears their own name in conversation, a specific part of their brain lights up. It's called the medial prefrontal cortex. The region that processes self-relevant information. Information about identity. About personal meaning. About things that matter to who you are. Meaning their name makes the conversation about them in a way nothing else does. It's not just a word. It's a neurological trigger. A signal that this interaction is personal. That you see them as an individual, not just another face in the room. So when you get their name, use it. Once. Carefully. Strategically. That's actually a really good point, Maya. Or I love that perspective, Jordan. Not repeatedly. That starts feeling manipulative. Like a sales tactic you learn from a seminar. Just once, in a moment that actually matters. And that single use creates more personal connection than most people build in an entire first date. Because it signals you were paying attention. You remember who they are. They're not interchangeable. They're not forgettable. They registered. But here's the part one needs you to hear. The part that matters more than any technique or trick or psychological hack. The real fear isn't rejection. It's regret. The version of you that walks away without saying anything. That's the version that actually suffers. You'll replay that moment for days. For weeks. Sometimes for years. You'll think about what you could have said. What might have happened. Who that person could have been in your life if you'd just taken the step. And that weight? That wondering? It's heavier than any awkward conversation could ever be. But the version of you that takes the risk? That says the thing. Even if it goes nowhere, that version sleeps better at night. Because at least you know. At least you tried. At least you honored the pull you felt instead of pretending it didn't exist. The conversation itself is just a few minutes. Just two people exchanging words. Worst case scenario, it's a polite exchange that doesn't lead anywhere. You're exactly where you were before. No worse off. No damage done. Best case. Everything changes. Some of the most important people in my life started with 30 seconds of discomfort. One decision to value the possibility over the safety of staying silent. One choice to walk across a room and say hello to someone I didn't know. And I'm not exaggerating when I say those 30-second decisions shaped the entire trajectory of my life. Jobs I got. Friendships I built. Relationships that mattered. All of it started with someone being brave enough to approach someone else. So here's my challenge to you. Next time you feel that pull toward someone. That curiosity. That attraction. Don't wait for the perfect moment. Don't rehearse the perfect line. Just go. Just say something. Anything honest. See what happens when you choose courage over comfort. Subscribe for more of this every single week. This is just the beginning.